Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Steve Chiama, and I'm the owner of the Action Coach franchise here in Fairfax, Virginia. And I'm your host today of the Business Spotlight podcast. And today I have the pleasure to introduce Robert Goodman, the president of Technical Interviewers LLC, as my guest. Today we're going to talk about Robert's business, his journey into business, challenges, best practices, and share a peek into what it's really like to build and operate a business. So if this is your first time on the channel, be sure to like and subscribe to get notifications when shows like this drop. Robert, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here today. And if you would, please give us a little bit of background about who you are and a little bit about your business.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve, for having me on. My business, as you said, is Technical Interviewers LLC. I find software developers for startups, small businesses, entrepreneurs. Then I also provide related consulting. I came into it as a software developer myself. My first job out of college was coding enterprise web applications. Then I moved more into management, becoming a CTO. And then from there, I saw the pain points where people weren't hiring the right people or didn't know what to do once they had them. And
Mm-hmm.
I saw the niche and I leapt for it.
Mm-hmm.
And there we are.
You have discovered, I presume, that business is a little bit different than coding computers.
Just a bit. Just a bit.
Yeah. All right. So just for context for the listeners, how's the business structured? And I mean that in a financial kind of way. Are there partners? Are there leverage? Is there investor money? Or have you been bootstrapping this all along?
Bootstrap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Recruiting in general tends to be done that way.
Mm-hmm.
At least at my end of the market.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, you have expenses, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a certain amount of risk in the sense that, like most recruiters, I'm contingency based, and that I only
Mm-hmm.
charge if someone actually hires the person that I find for them. But that said, they're the kind of expenses that are manageable with good, good financial skills. And as for employees, it's me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I've never really been tempted to hire anyone else since I have the kind of business where clients expect personal attention.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Who is a typical client? What are the kinds of entities that you're serving most frequently at this point?
Mm. I see a few different markets, but generally speaking, I go for startups that are hiring their first one or two developers.
Mm-hmm.
Or alternatively, those that don't have, they're small enough that they still don't have the skills to find the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also go also go a little bit to either side. I go sometimes with entrepreneurs who are hiring freelancers, and then I also go with established businesses that are not into coding, and therefore, yeah, they're established, but they're not established in the thing that they're trying to do. But broadly speaking, I'd say 90% of them are startups that are trying to hire a developer for some kind of a coding project.
Mm-hmm. Do you find the number of those entities is increasing these days, or does it seem to be pretty stable?
I'd say it's pretty stable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you saw a boom a few years ago. Now it's remaining steady.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, you saw a shrink due to AI and vibe coding, but as companies have discovered that it isn't all that it promised to be, you've seen people move back into real deal developer hiring.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That topic has so many different aspects of it. AI is a tool, it's just another tool.
Mm.
Yeah, interesting, interesting. So, what makes you unique? How do you stand out, and how do you make yourself the person that companies need to call?
Mm. Well, to be perfectly fair, there are tons of recruiters out there. I have tons of
Hmm.
competition.
Hmm.
What makes me different is that I came at it from a different door.
Hmm.
Your average recruiter is a human resources person
Hmm.
who got into tech as a niche. That's where most tech recruiters come from. They're HR people. Somehow they work for a tech company. They get into knowing that end of the market, and so they break out. I got into it in the opposite way. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not an HR person. I'm a develop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an HR person who got into development. I'm a developer who got into HR, um,
Mm-hmm.
which means that I can talk to developers on their level. I can ask
Mm-hmm.
them questions that most recruiters can't ask. Um,
Mm-hmm.
relate to them on a personal level, and at the end of that day, that means that I find a better candidate
Mm-hmm. That
because I can
makes sense.
because I can actually tell the difference between a good candidate and a bad one just by talking with them. It also means that I can provide a lot of advising services to my clients, which is important because for many of them, it's their first tech project and they need some help as to what to do once they've hired the person.
Very good. Well, talk a little bit more about choosing the right candidate, the right tech candidate. How do you determine that of these five people, that one seems to make the most sense for this situation over here?
Well, there are a few things to look at. Um, First of all, you have to start by talking with the client and finding out exactly what the project is.
Mm,
That sounds like an elementary thing, but the fact is there are thousands of different technologies in the software industry, and it
hmm
does you no good to hire someone that is an expert in all the things that you don't need. So there's that. Um, there's also the question of fit. Sometimes you see developers that are used to working at very large companies where you file forms in triplicate.
hmm
And if you're a startup, that's not really what you want. You need
hmm
someone that's nimble and solutions oriented. So there's a lot about mindset. There's also the question of quality.
hmm
Um, Generally speaking, it's not enough to have someone that can write code. You have to have someone that does a good job. Again, that
hmm
sounds like a pretty obvious thing to say, but you see a lot of programs that look okay but are very disorganized beneath the surface. That's one of the things that's killing off vibe coding, like I mentioned before.
hmm
It tends to
hmm
produce code that works technically, but it breaks if you so much as look funny at it. And that's also the case with less experienced developers. You
hmm
see them, you see people that are fresh out of school that technically they have the list of skills you want, but they don't really know how to architect things properly to build something that lasts. So there's that too. Um, Personality is also a factor. You need someone that's team oriented, that can take direction, that's resourceful. So there are a lot of different components, and some of them vary from client to client.
Yeah, that makes sense. A whole lot of sense, actually. There's a big difference between the needs of a small startup
Mm,
business and a huge um, business that's got hundreds of people in it.
mm,
Um, the infrastructure is different, the communication paths are different, and the expectations for flexibility. Um, maybe that person has to do three or four roles that in a large organization they already have people fit into those slots.
mm.
So that can make an awful lot of sense. Good, good. Um, let's go. Let's kind of reel back a little bit. Um, you said you saw a need. What was the trigger that got you to decide I've got to go into business for myself?
Well, it happened in two stages. Um, After I'd been a software developer for a while, I went back to school and got my MBA.
hmm
And my classmates were all, or at least many of them, from a non-tech background,
hmm
and they all had ideas for their own startups.
hmm
And I started to notice that they had absolutely no idea how to go about hiring someone or what kind of person to hire. So I
hmm
started to get the vague idea that there was a need. Uh,
hmm
then one of them hired me to be a CTO for
hmm
their startup for a while,
hmm
and they had already hired the team, and I discovered that they didn't know how to hire either. So, you know, those two things planted the idea in my head that there's a disconnect between the founder and the people they need to hire to make their idea a success.
Hmm. But there's still a huge gap between I see a need and I'm going to go get it.
Hmm.
What
Yeah.
what caused you to make that leap?
Well, I started noticing that I was in a peculiar position to bridge the gap.
Hmm.
Uh, Most coders don't know enough about management to work with the startup owner and find the right person. On the other side of the equation, most HR people don't know about enough about tech to be able to judge whether a candidate is good or not. I was in sort of a unique position that I had both sides of the equation, and that
Hmm.
seemed like a great opportunity to move into.
Cool, 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 cool. Along this journey, what would you say has been one of the more memorable hurdles that you've had to cross in order
Hmm.
to make this go forward?
There are a few, but I'd say that the largest one was I had to reconcile the fact that what I had in mind doing wasn't exactly what potential clients wanted.
Mm-hmm.
When I started the business, I saw my expertise um, as the fact that I can tell a good developer from a bad one,
Hmm.
and it is that's one of the main parts of my value proposition.
Hmm.
So that was my original idea, and this is why I called the business technical interviewers, was
Hmm.
that a client would come to me with a long list of candidates that they had applied to them,
Hmm.
and I would weed through them, find the best, and say these are the
Hmm.
guys you should hire.
Hmm.
And that was the business plan. I wrote up a whole big business plan and all that, but I soon discovered that that was not what the client wanted.
Hmm.
The client wanted someone to handle the process from soup to nuts. They
Hmm.
wanted someone to write out the job postings. They wanted someone to go out and look for candidates.
Hmm.
They did want what I had to offer, but they wanted more than that. They wanted the complete service.
Hmm.
And I had to look closely at the fact that, yeah, what the thing that I intended to do is important, but I also need to accommodate the other things that the client wants, even if it wasn't what I had in mind.
That's not all bad.
Yeah.
That increases the need, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
Cool, cool, cool. Um, what were you hoping to get from it? What was the underlying purpose for you?
Well, a few. First, of course, like everyone who goes into business, I want it to be a successful business. Uh, but also I find a lot of interest in working with startup owners and helping them, make their ideas happen.
Good.
Everybody brings something new to the table, both in terms of the idea and in terms of who they are as a person. And that's
Hmm.
exciting. And it's exciting to be able to find the people that will make that happen.
Good, 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 good. Looking ahead, looking out 5 or 10 years, where do you see this going? What do you want the business to become?
Well, there are two directions in which I'm moving. And again, it'll depend on where the market goes and what the client wants, because at the end of the day, it's all about them. But I've started moving in two directions. First of all, I've started offering advising services,
Hmm.
um, doing consulting in terms of, am I ready for a developer? Do I need to change the plan? Do I need to fill out the design doc?
Hmm.
Um, Once I've got the developer, how do I set up the team? Offering those additional consulting and advising services is a
Hmm.
way that I think the market is moving. So there's that. The other end of things I think is into management. I've done some situations where I've acted as kind of a virtual manager of the team,
Hmm.
providing help where it's needed, and that's another thing. Um, I've also started doing some consulting in terms of when teams have problems, when
Hmm.
there's uh, when there's a problem with the development process. Is it the developer? Is it you? Is it something else?
Hmm.
Often it's difficult to tell. So I
Hmm.
think building on what I have and providing knowledge is where the industry is going.
Okay. Are there challenges you'll need to overcome in order to make that work for you?
Well, I think there are a few. First
Hmm.
of all, it requires a certain change in terms of marketing.
Hmm.
Uh, it it involves, again, and then that would sound like a broken record. It involves researching a little bit about what exactly the customer wants, because often it's not
Hmm.
obvious.
Hmm.
I think there's that. There are also, of course, challenges in the industry you have to face because the industry is always evolving. Uh,
Mm. Yeah.
for example, one of the things that a recruiter has to do is weed out scammers from among the candidates, and the scammers are constantly evolving and becoming more sophisticated.
Hmm.
Um, and that also makes marketing a challenge because I have to convince a potential client that I'm not one of those scammers.
Trust is an issue.
Yeah, it's everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. Thinking along those lines, you've learned a lot. You've been doing this for a while. You've had the opportunity to bounce some things around and try some stuff. If you were going to start this business up again today, new, knowing what you know now, are there things you would do differently?
Hmm, that's an interesting one. I know it sounds redundant, but I think I would have moved into consulting earlier.
Mm,
Um, I think that the need for advising was always there. I think I
mm-hmm,
didn't see it, and I think I could have gotten more candidates from the recruiting end of things if I'd started out consulting and then said, "Hey, in addition, I can find these people for you."
mm-hmm,
So I think there's that. I could have been more sophisticated first with marketing. Uh,
mm-hmm,
when I started out, I had absolutely no idea how to promote myself.
mm,
I went to a lot of local networking meetings where I met a lot of people who were not particularly good clients at all, and where I handed out a lot of business cards and collected a lot of business cards, and I'm pretty sure that those business cards ended up uh, in the trash straight afterwards. So, which everyone has their strong points and their weak points. My weak point is that I'm not a marketing type of guy.
mm-hmm,
I'm, but I think hindsight's 2020, but I think it's good to look back and see what you would have done differently because
mm-hmm.
it helps you to figure out what you should do now.
Exactly. It opens up different ideas and different doors. Perfect. This is good. You've gotten a couple of interesting points there, and we could probably spend a bit of time on them, but I think in the interest of starting to wrap up so we don't take all day, let's hit a few rapid fire questions and see what we can do with those. Um, what's a, what's your key to success?
Hmm. Detail.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it's all about the details.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone likes to say about they're all about the big picture, but the truth is that in business, and especially my kind of business where I'm dealing with a
Mm-hmm.
one-on-one level, and where I'm helping startup owners make one of the most important decisions that they have to make. It's all
Mm-hmm.
about dotting the I's and crossing the T's, going over
Mm-hmm.
every detail and every aspect of their plans, uh,
Mm-hmm.
figuring out all about their company, figuring out them as a personality, because often that
Mm-hmm.
affects who you're going to hire.
Mm-hmm.
Looking in depth at the candidates for strengths,
Mm-hmm.
weaknesses, red flags. It's, and I think this is the case with a lot of businesses. It's all about the minutia.
Mm-hmm. Mm, good. Good, good, good. If we were at the coffee shop just chatting about business and somebody walked in talking about the business he was starting up, what's one piece of advice you would want to share with him?
Hmm. I would say come up with your financial plans.
That's a good one. Yeah.
It's everyone gets excited by this is my big new thing. This is how I'm
Hmm.
going to market it. This is who's going to buy it. But the fact is, at the end of the day, your business won't survive if it doesn't make money. And it's not just a question of put it out there and then figure out how to make a profit. When you start with finances, it forces you to take a hard look at what your business is. who's willing to pay for it and not just to say, "Oh, that's nice." What kind of revenue model works for them? For example, um, if your customer is small and undercapitalized, that affects what kind of revenue model you have.
Hmm.
Conversely, if you find that there's something in your revenue model that requires a large amount of money to be spent, then that says a lot about who your customers can be because you have to have someone that can cover it. Um, Finance is dull. It's not the exciting thing that everyone dreams about putting first when they're planning out their business. But thinking about the underpinnings of where your revenue streams are is going to inform the rest of your plan. And it's something that I find that a surprisingly large number of people just don't think about, especially in the tech industry. I'm sure you've heard all the stories of tech startups from the dot-com boom and then later the dot-com bust, where they had brilliant ideas and no one ever figured out exactly how they're going to make a profit from it.
I remember very clearly that
Yeah.
period.
You remember the year where the Super Bowl was wall-to-wall dot coms,
Yeah,
and then next year
was
no
gone.
dot coms. Yeah,
I met many of the former .com employees
yeah,
along the way.
me too.
Cool, cool. What is one book you've read recently or are reading now that's having impact on how you're making decisions in your business?
Hmm, that's a good one, and it has absolutely nothing to do with my industry or even tech in general. But I love Why We Buy by Paco Underhill.
Okay.
It's a book. Paco is a guy who specializes in studying consumers. He is hired by, for example, a grocery store
Hmm.
to observe customer patterns, what they're buying, whether they're reaching for a particular shelf, whether they're uh, more likely to go to one aisle versus another, whether one product indicates that they're going to go for another product. It's fascinating in the sense that it shows what you can do when you study your customer in depth.
Mm.
Obviously, I have absolutely nothing to do with the supermarket industry, but it's a fascinating book and it's illuminating in terms of teaching you just how to study the person that you want to be your customer and to figure out what their needs are, who they are, how they think, and so on.
Do you think there's any real difference between the grocery store industry and your industry?
Well, just a bit. It's a different kind of purchase for one thing. It's a large purchase versus a small, and it's a different type of good. But one thing is the same, and that's that in both cases, you're trying to attract the customer and you're trying to figure out what they want and to get them to give you money in exchange for giving them what you want. And that's what all business boils down to in the end is supply and demand.
Yeah, yeah, love it. Good, good, good. That's really good. Um, you've had a great journey. Like I say, you've learned a whole lot about this. What are you most proud of in this journey?
I'm proud of the success stories from the clients.
Hmm.
It makes me very proud to look at people that I've worked with to come back later to see that their idea is taken off, that they've got that startup, and that I've done a service for everyone. The that the startup owner has the startup that they dreamed of, that the developer has a job where they go to work really interested in what they're doing, where they're excited to do what they do. And that's very fulfilling to be able to see an idea take off and know that you had a part in it.
Very good. Just for fun, following up on that and kind of flipping the question around, if you had a magic wand and could magically improve one thing in your business this afternoon, what would it be?
Hmm, that's a tricky one. I guess I would have to say more effective marketing.
Hmm.
I'm like I mentioned earlier, I'm not a marketing guy. It was my least favorite class when I was in MBA. Uh, I'm a tech guy, I'm a management guy, I'm a finance guy, and an HR guy, somewhat by relation, but I'm not really a marketing guy. So yeah, if I were to improve, I'd say, 50% better at being a salesman.
Okay, very good, very good. Most important question, how can people who want to know more get in contact with you?
Let's see. They could go to my website at techinterviewers.com. They can also reach
Hmm.
out to me on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
or I'm usually on. I think. How did you find me? Was it by email or link or Reddit?
LinkedIn.
Okay, yeah, LinkedIn. Yeah,
Hmm.
LinkedIn's always great. Um,
Hmm.
uh, and Again, my website has a contact form, and just reach out.
Hmm.
It'll be me answering, not a robocall.
Very good, very good. Last question, what's most inspiring to you today?
Hmm. Well, that's a tricky one. Um, and I guess I'd have to return to what I said before. It's the innovation I see,
Hmm.
and it's the ability of people to work together to create that innovation.
Hmm.
It used to be in my industry that programs and startups were made by one guy working in their bedroom
Hmm.
or in their garage. That hasn't been the case for a long time. Very few startups are done that way. They're done by groups of people, people
Hmm.
working together, people bouncing off of each other,
Hmm.
um, people complementing each other's strengths and minimizing their weaknesses. And I think that that's what's inspiring is seeing people work together to be successful.
Hmm. Very good, very good. This has been a great conversation. You brought up a couple of really important aspects of this game. One, obviously financial. If you're not following the finances, you don't know where the business is going. And another, you really have touched on an important point about marketing. That grocery store story actually has a lot of opportunity and insight inside of it. It's customer behavior is the whole game. What do people want to buy and why do they want to buy it? So that's been fantastic. Thank you for thinking about those. Thank you for sharing those. For everybody watching, save the show, come back and listen. I think Robert's brought up a couple of really good points here. Um, don't forget to like and subscribe so you get notifications every time a new conversation like this one drops. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Thank you, especially to Robert for sharing, for being vulnerable, and for sharing his journey. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. It's been fun.